So just a little bit about ourselves, our business. My grandfather, Milton John Hopkins III, actually founded the business with two partners in 1970. By 1975, the two partners were out, and my grandfather suffered a major heart attack. So my father, Milton John Hopkins IV, stepped in as the successor. At the time, the business was in terrible shape, in default, was out of trust with the bank. So my dad and his sister Charlotte, who also worked at the business at the time, had to put their houses up for collateral with the bank to be able to continue to have cash flow to operate the business. So the 80s were a tough time for our business, near bankruptcy multiple times, et cetera, but they continued to fight for the business, and ultimately by the 1990s, in much better shape, expanding into new markets, and received a National Dealer of the Year award, which was a pretty high recognition at that time. So a little bit about our manufacturer base. In the 1980s, we were forced to choose one manufacturer. Up to that point, we had worked with several. Freightliner was our largest manufacturer that we worked with, but we worked with Volvo International and some others. So we were really forced, though, to choose just one. We chose Freightliner, which we are really happy that we did, and we'll share a little bit more about that here in a minute. At the time, they were owned by Daimler-Benz. Now it's Daimler Trucks. So my brother and myself there's 5 children in my family. My brother and myself, Justin, are the only 2 that actually work in the business. And we've worked in the business ever since we were young. So I like to tell the story. My first day on the job when I was either 10 or 11, I was working on Saturdays at the dealership, answering phones, filing invoices. And I was ready to go. My dad comes out and says, "Hey, are you done?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'm done." He sees this small stack of invoices on the desk, and he looks at me and said, "Well, what are those?" And I said, "Well, I just didn't finish these few, but, they'll be able to get them tomorrow, no big deal. I got all these other ones done. I was really proud of myself." And he's like, No, you need to finish those invoices before you go home, or you can take them home and finish them there." So valuable work ethic lessons from my dad really all through my life. And that was maybe just the first one. And I can't really complain too much about my first job because my brother, on the other hand, first job was detailing used trucks, which is not very pleasant all the time. So our growth through the years, 1970, like I shared, we started in Highland, Illinois, 14 employees at the time, around $1 million in annual revenue. Over the course of all of those years, now we're up to 10 locations in Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana, and around 750 employees. This year, we're projected to around $650 million in annual revenue. So what I wanted to share a little bit about today is the rapid growth that we've had over the last decade. So in the last 10 years, we've actually doubled in size, sales revenues, employee headcount, and locations. So this was done through acquisitions, organic growth, and new facility builds. And as all of you know who have grown businesses, when you grow that fast, it's not the paced growth that you probably want to do to make it a little easier. It's quite challenging to manage that scale. So fortunately for us, as I shared earlier, we partnered with Daimler Trucks. They worked with their dealers in 2011. They saw a need to standardize and elevate the customer experience across the network. So they worked with some small group of dealers, and we were one of those, to create a program that would hopefully achieve that goal of elevating the customer experience. And the program ended up really being focused around lean management, which I'm sure, again, many of you are super familiar with and use regularly, and continuous improvement to achieve that standard. So for truck centers up to that point, we had really been a company that I think people might describe as a little bit of a flavor of the month group. We really loved chasing new ideas. And I'm not gonna lie, we still do now today too, but we really, really love chasing new ideas, sort of like dogs chasing the squirrel. And really to distinguish this program with our team and to get past the reluctance and resistance of change, we needed to make this clear that it was a sustainable commitment, kind of like going to the gym and doing burpees in the morning. You're disciplined for that. Okay. All right, so the criteria, just a few things about this. It's really focused around facilities, having high standards there, the customer touch points, standards there, and then employee and development training standards. I won't belabor this too much because, again, I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with the Lean Six Sigma 5S model. For us, this was brand new when we first were introduced to it, and really the goal, of course, being standardized workplace processes to reduce waste and improve efficiencies. So some of our first early wins with this, some simple things, some customer parts areas, which obviously weren't too organized, some tool storage areas, improvements, and then this is my personal favorite. I don't know if you can really see it, but there's hoses hanging really far down. And so when you wanted to walk into this aisle to pick up your parts, you either had to duck, do the limbo, or take a hit to the head. So we improved that. So at the core of this program is what we call continuous improvement coordinators. And these are the individuals that inside of the locations actually facilitate all the continuous improvement work. They work with change management teams, which I'll talk about in a second, to achieve those goals. They go through a rigorous training program with Daimler Trucks and their network peers. It takes a couple of years. And the focus of the training is really on best practices on lean management and on continuous improvement, 5S model, all of those sorts of things, and then also structured problem-solving tools. So that has been super helpful for them in working with change management teams, again, in each of their locations, working to find solutions to the problems that they had or opportunities. So each year, every dealer that's a part of Elite Support has to come up with a minimum of 4 continuous improvement events. Obviously, we hope that there's quite a bit more than that, but you do submit a minimum of 4 to Daimler overall, and then the network votes on what the best ideas are. And so we've been fortunate. Over the years, we've had some great ones, and we've had some not so great. I thought I would share with you today a few of the wins and some of the failures both, just to give you an idea of kind of how it's worked for us in practice. The first one, process focus, I'm pretty sure you guys are all like, this is a no-brainer. Are you serious? You've been in business 53 years and you're just figuring this out? But yeah, we kind of are. Anyways, one of our kind of MOs, if you will, was not only were we a flavor of the month, we also were big on baptism by fire, which, again, I'm sure you're all quite familiar with it. That's the newest employee trains the newest employee. Not a good program. So when we really started to dive into the protocol of Elite Support and we really started to focus on processes, we created documented processes and job aids for every single job. And again, I know it's a no-brainer, pretty simple, but for us it was really transformational to helping our team reduce stress, productivity, improves efficiencies, all of those good things. Another one that we actually won a event of the year over was this program called TCI First, Future in Repair Service Technology. And what this is, our industry service technician shortage is very prevalent, has been for decades. We don't have enough service technicians to do the work at our shop. So we could see that this was going to be a long-term problem. And if we wanted to get ahead of that, we needed to come up with our own solution because no one was just presenting us all of these technicians. So we are fortunate to have a training center, a standalone training center, and we have 4 certified trainers that are certified by Daimler to teach technical classes. So what we did, we partnered with local educators and created a program, a year-long program, apprenticeship type of program where they would do classroom training with our trainers in the training center, and then they would also do practicum on the shop floor, working alongside shop floor mentors. So this was super successful for us. Since we implemented it in 2014, we've been able to put 70 technicians through the program. We figure it generates around $15 million in gross margin during that time. So we thought, hey, this is awesome. This is 2022. We're like, this is great. Let's kick it up a notch. Rather than 1 class per year, why don't we try 4? So let me just say that was an epic failure. We had to actually stop the program earlier this year and just do a reassess. A couple reasons why we failed with that. Well, one, we were doing this quarterly program, so now they were taking classes with the general technician population rather than just with their own small student group. That did not work because it was being taught at too high of a level. It lost that kind of community feel that the students were getting when they would work just together in a class. Another issue was we did not have a robust intake program for them when they were going into the shops, so there was just not enough support in and out of the shops as frequently as that quarterly needed. And the final one, which I think is also kind of interesting and comical maybe that we didn't think about this before, but the students, when they graduate, we give them a starter tool kit. So it's a toolbox with starter tools that they need. And typically, they're coming straight out of high school, they don't have their own tools. So we were putting them in the shop floor to work alongside senior technicians, but they didn't have their tools. So this was a big problem because if you have any technicians working for you, you might know a lot of them, they're not really big on sharing their own tools because they're typically their own personal tools. So we've reassessed, and I'm happy to say that we will be starting this program in actually a couple months. We're kicking it back up, and we are going to go back to just the one program per year. Lastly, you just talked about engagement and inspiration, and wow, that was super inspiring. We're just looking for engagement at this point, though. I think we got a ways to go before we can get to the inspiring. Anyways, one of the things that I heard about at an elite support meeting, they have an annual meeting, a CEO that I greatly respected was talking about how he was doing these employee surveys on an annual basis, using the data at town halls to discuss with the team, and then coming up with continuous improvement projects from it. It sounded to me like an awesome idea. It was 2018, and we had actually never done an employee survey ever in our history. There really wasn't a lot of support for doing it either, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know exactly why, but nobody really wanted to do it. But I had a really strong feeling in my heart that this was the right thing for us to do, and we really needed to see kind of what was going on and how was the team perceiving things. So, as you can see, the results were not great. So we did have great participation, which was awesome. So we had 75% people participate. We received around 1,600 individual comments. And they had a lot to say, like I said. The lowest scores were relating to our management team, managers helping me learn and grow, managers caring about my concerns. And then the other area that was really weak was our interdepartmental cooperation. And the comments that were made in those 1,600s were comments around, it seems like every location is just for themselves. It doesn't seem like we're a part of a larger organization. There's a lot of fighting inside of the locations, even department to department. So a lot of those type of challenges. And I think what I would say about all of that is, we were at that time not a company that really had a structured organizational chart at all. And there was a lot of kind of chaos in who reported to who and what responsibility and what lane. So I kind of actually think of it like Doug Tatum describes, many of you have heard and read, no doubt, no man's land. I think we were very much entrenched in no man's land at this time. So some of the things that we dove in and we did a lot of things. First, we created a management and leadership development program we call TCI Lead. Kicked that off at the end of 2018. Second, we did meetings at each facility and small group meetings. I was a part of those meetings with the CICs, and we would talk with all the employees to just get their feedback on what was really going on. Came up with a lot of great feedback from that, and the CICs then worked with their change management teams to implement a lot of those kinds of changes. And then we also promoted a well-respected leader on our organization to be the director of operations. So we were trying to start to build that consistency across our locations. And when I opened this survey up in 2019, I was thrilled because you can see from the arrows, every single area went the right way. So I really felt like, wow, this is awesome. We're really on the right track here. Bottom score still, though, that interdepartmental cooperation. So we were still not hitting the mark fully on the organizational structure and not that kind of infighting between locations and more of a feeling of one team, one goal. We were not there. So we still had our work cut out for us. The managers also were, again, kind of low on the totem pole, but I felt good, really good about we were going in the right direction. So 2019, you guys know what comes after that. 2020, COVID, right? Like now we're all in emergency mode. How do we survive this business? How do we, take care of our employees? How do we take care of our customers? How do we get supplies? How do we get workforce? So it was a super stressful time for us. Again, preaching to the choir, all of you have been there, lived it as well. Tough times. By mid-2021, we were in better shape on most of those issues. We still have some supply chain problems, particularly on truck supply. We still have them actually today. But we were making some good headway. So we picked up kind of where we left off on the what I felt were organizational structural needs that we had. We hired a CFO. We'd actually never had a CFO in our really history. We might have maybe back in like the 80s, but since I've been a part of the business, which is 26 years now, we had not had a CFO. And this was just like what I would almost call the rocket fuel that we did not realize we were missing all of those years. It was freaking game changing. So we have been able to, and we were able to, starting with him coming aboard, make all kinds of organizational changes that I think were absolutely needed. Some of the things we did, we adjusted our compensation structure for the entire organization to create basically consistency, equity, transparency, very clear compensation program. We aligned our incentives around our strategic initiatives. We actually created a strategic plan for the first time as well, a 3-year strategic plan. So that was big for us. We did some pricing adjustments and created a model around that. So we did a ton of things. And actually, as a result of that, our performance soared. So 2022, our EBITDA at the end of the year was double the highest we'd ever been previous in our history. So we were, really feeling pretty good about all of that. And so during that time, 2020, 21, we did not do employee surveys. We were just trying to kind of navigate everything, right, coming at us. So we refreshed our efforts July of 22. And you're probably looking at this going like, why would she even put that up there? And Chauncey actually, I sent her the slide deck and she sent me an email and she's like, it kind of, did you mean to send that? Because it looks like it's going the wrong way. And I was like, no, you're right, it is. Yeah, it definitely is showing that. So just a few things to say about this. We, made a ton of changes, right? Like I just shared all those changes we made, and we did that in the course of a year. So I think some of the lessons learned, one, we obviously probably went a little too fast. I mean, our results soared, but clearly we didn't have fully the team all on board with us. We didn't really use our change management teams and CICs, the stuff I was just sitting here talking about. We really didn't use a lot of those tools when we were implementing a lot of those changes. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting about this, and I don't think is really a bad thing, is that our senior leadership group, when you look at overall engagement, you can kind of see, by segment who is the most engaged versus least. Our senior leadership group was actually the least engaged. And what I think that says, most of them had been there for a decade plus, is they were really struggling with losing some of that autonomy. And some of those things that we made for the organization, which I feel very passionately about, were the absolute right things that we needed to do. They were feeling like they were losing some of that authority, and so they were struggling with that. So since this time, some of the things that we've done, and we'll be having another survey in a month, so I'm optimistic that we're going to see some very positive changes. We pushed back really everything towards the locations to come up with their own programs for any issues that they had in place. The other thing we did, we promoted another well-respected leader to directly lead all the general managers. So up to that point, my brother and myself had split the location management, and it was still not creating that consistency in messaging even on a lot of those changes. So we needed to correct that. So far, it's been going great. I think we'll see in a month how well it really is going. And I mean, and it's a journey, right? So continuous improvement, better than delayed perfection. So that's where we are, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about it. Thank you.